After my childhood accident, I thought the hardest part was learning how to live with the memories I lost. But 20 years later, while going through my mother's things, I found a document she never wanted me to see. It wasn't medical, it wasn't legal, it was personal. And the moment I read my own name on the first page, I realized the accident didn't erase the truth, it was hiding it. The envelope was wedged beneath the false bottom of her mother's jewelry box, a box Emma had opened 1,000 times as a child, trying on clip-on earrings and pretending to be grown. She'd never known there was a second layer. It was 3 weeks after the funeral, 3 weeks of sorting through a lifetime compressed into boxes and donation bags. 3 weeks of her sister Claire directing traffic like a general, deciding what stayed and what disappeared, while Emma mostly nodded and tried not to feel like an intruder in her own childhood home. The envelope was manila, bent at the corners, sealed but not taped. Inside were photocopies, medical records it looked like at first. Emma's hands went cold. She recognized the hospital letterhead, St. Catherine's, where she'd spent 2 months when she was 7 years old, after the accident that had split her childhood cleanly in half. Before, a girl who climbed trees and remembered birthday parties. After, a girl who had to be told her own middle name. She sat on the edge of her mother's bed and started reading. The first page was a consultation note, Dr. Patricia Huang, neuropsychologist. The date made Emma's stomach tighten. It was from a week before the surgery, the operation that was supposed to relieve the pressure on her brain, stop the seizures, save her life. She'd been told it was routine, necessary, dangerous only if they didn't do it. But this note wasn't about necessity. Patient's mother expressed concern about daughter's recent behavioral changes and what she described as inappropriate questions regarding family structure. Mother requested consultation to discuss memory consolidation procedures in conjunction with planned temporal lobe surgery. Emma read it again, then a third time. Behavioral changes? Inappropriate questions? Memory consolidation procedures? She flipped to the next page. Another note, this one handwritten on hospital stationery. Mrs. Garrett remains insistent that certain pre-accident memories should not be reinforced during recovery, specifically concerned about period between ages 4 and 6, states that daughter has been confused about father's identity and has asked questions about a man mother claims was only a brief acquaintance, recommends we avoid family photo integration therapy and limit reminiscence protocols. Emma's vision blurred at the edges. She thought about those years after she woke up, the way her mother would gently redirect whenever Emma asked about the man in the photos, the tall one with the dark hair who showed up in pictures from when she was very small, then vanished. Just a family friend, her mother had said. He moved away before the accident. You're mixing up memories, sweetheart. Except she hadn't been mixing anything up. She'd been remembering. And her mother had made sure those memories stayed buried. The family dinner had been Claire's idea, of course. We need to talk about the house, she had said over the phone, her voice carrying that specific blend of concern and control that Emma had learned to recognize as dangerous. We can't put it off forever. Emma wanted to say that 3 weeks wasn't forever, that their mother deserved more than a quick probate calculation and a realtor's walkthrough. But Claire had already made her mind, and when Claire made her mind, the world rearranged itself to accommodate her. So, Emma drove to her sister's house in the suburbs, where everything was beige and coordinated, and nothing was ever out of place. Claire's husband, Mark, opened the door with his practiced smile, the one that never quite reached his eyes, and gestured her toward the dining room like she was a guest instead of family. Claire was setting the table. Cloth napkins, the good plates. Emma felt a familiar knot form in her chest. This wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be a presentation. You look tired, Claire said, glancing up. Not quite concerned, more like she was noting a fact for the record. I've been going through Mom's things. Oh, Emma, Claire sighed, setting down the last fork with geometric precision. I told you I'd help with that. You don't have to do it all yourself. Except Claire's version of help meant making decisions, and Emma had learned a long time ago that when Claire made decisions, Emma's feelings were categorized as obstacles to efficiency. Mark appeared with a bottle of wine. "How are you holding up?" he asked, and Emma could tell he'd been coached to ask. His sympathy had talking points. "I'm fine." "It's okay not to be fine," Claire said, sitting down with the air of someone who'd read that phrase in a grief counseling pamphlet. "Losing a parent is hard, even when it's expected." Emma wanted to say that nothing about a sudden heart attack was expected, but she just nodded and accepted the wine Mark poured with slightly too much generosity. They talked about the house. Claire had spreadsheets. She'd already contacted 3 realtors, compiled market analyses, estimated probate timelines. She slid a folder across the table toward Emma like she was closing a business deal. "The market's good right now," Claire said. "If we list by the end of the month, we can probably close before the holidays. Split everything 50-50, obviously. I know Mom would have wanted us to be practical about this." Emma stared at the folder. Inside would be numbers, projections, clean solutions to messy grief. "I found something today, in Mom's jewelry box," Emma said, quietly. Claire's expression flickered, just for a second, something that might have been alarm before it smoothed back into patient concern. "What kind of something?" "Medical records, from when I was 7. The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds too long. Mark suddenly became very interested in his wine glass. Claire's smile stayed in place, but her shoulders tensed in a way Emma recognized from childhood, from moments that Emma had asked the wrong question or brought up the wrong memory. "Emma, I'm not sure it's healthy to dwell on that time," Claire said carefully. "You've worked so hard to move forward." "Did you know?" Emma asked. The question came out sharper than it intended. "Know what?" "That Mom asked them to keep me from remembering, that the surgery wasn't just about the seizures." Claire's fork clinked against her plate. "That's not... You're misunderstanding whatever you read. The accident was traumatic. The doctors did what they thought was best. The doctors did what Mom asked them to do." "Because she was protecting you." Claire's voice rose, and Mark put a hand on her arm, a gentle warning that she was showing too much. She took a breath, reset. "You were 7 years old, asking about a man who abandoned us, someone who didn't want to be found. Mom was trying to spare you that pain." "What man?" Emma's heart was pounding now. "Who abandoned us?" Claire looked at Mark, then back at Emma. "This isn't the time." "Who was he, Claire?" "Your father." Claire said it like she was announcing the weather, flat, final. "Your biological father, if you want to be specific, not mine. Mine stayed, yours left before you could form complete sentences." Emma felt the room tilt slightly. She'd suspected, of course. The timeline had never quite made sense. The way her mother's stories about Dad, Claire's father, the man who died when Claire was 12, never included Emma in the early years. But suspecting and knowing were different countries, separated by a border Emma had never been allowed to cross. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because it didn't matter," Claire said. "Because you had us, and that was enough. Because Mom didn't want you spending your whole life wondering about someone who didn't want to be a parent." "So she made sure I couldn't remember him?" "She made sure you weren't haunted by him." Claire's voice softened, but there was steel underneath. "Emma, you have to understand. Those years before the accident, you were obsessed. You'd found a picture and you wouldn't let it go. You kept asking where he was, when he was coming back. Mom was barely holding things together, trying to raise 2 kids alone, and you were making it harder." "I was 4 years old." "You were making her cry every night." Claire's composure crocked just slightly. "I remember, Emma. I was 11. I heard her on the phone with the doctors, crying because she couldn't make you understand that some people leave and they're not coming back. The accident, what happened to you, it was horrible, but the surgery gave her a chance to spare you that pain, to give you a fresh start." Emma stood up. The chair scraped against the hardwood floor, too loud in the careful silence. "A fresh start," she repeated. "By erasing who I was?" By giving you peace, Claire said, and it worked, didn't it? You grew up happy. You didn't spend your childhood feeling abandoned. I spent it feeling like something was missing, like there was a hole in my life I couldn't explain. That's the accident, Emma. That's trauma. It's not the same thing. Emma's voice was shaking now, and you know it's not. Mark cleared his throat. Maybe we should take a break. I think I should go, Emma said. Claire stood too, reaching out, but Emma stepped back. Don't, Emma said. Don't try to make this okay. Don't tell me it was for my own good. What do you want me to say? Claire's voice rose again. That Mom made a mistake? That she should have let you suffer? You don't remember what you were like, Emma. You don't remember how hard it was. Because she made sure I couldn't. Emma grabbed her coat from the hall closet, her hands shaking. Behind her, she could hear Claire saying something to Mark, but the words blurred together. She was already out the door, already in her car, already driving with tears blurring the streetlights into watercolor smears. She didn't go home. She went back to her mother's house, to the bedroom that still smelled faintly of lavender and secrets, to the jewelry box with its false bottom. There were more pages. She'd only read the first few. Emma spread them across the bed and started from the beginning. The hospital records painted a different picture than the one Emma had lived with for 20 years. She'd been told the accident was simple, in that brutal way childhood tragedies are sometimes simple. She'd fallen from the treehouse in the backyard, hit her head on the edge of the deck, fractured her skull. Emergency surgery, touch and go for a while. Then a second surgery to relieve pressure when the swelling wouldn't go down. Memory loss was a side effect, unfortunate but not unexpected given the location of the injury. But these pages told a different story. The first surgery had been successful, relatively minor damage all things considered. The swelling had gone down, the seizures had stopped, she was recovering well. Then her mother had requested a consultation with Dr. Huang. Mrs. Garrett reports that patient is experiencing fragmentary recall of pre-accident period. Patient has mentioned daddy several times, not referring to Mrs. Garrett's late husband, patient's stepfather, deceased 2 years prior, but to biological father who left the family when patient was 3. Mrs. Garrett states that injury seems to reset this progress. Emma read it twice, her throat tight. Her mother hadn't just wanted her to forget the man, she'd wanted her to forget that she'd ever called him daddy at all. Dr. Huang advised Mrs. Garrett that memory consolidation after TBI is unpredictable and that attempting to influence which memories stabilize could be considered ethically problematic. Mrs. Garrett became tearful and stated she couldn't bear the thought of patient living in the past or forming an attachment to someone who destroyed our family. There was a gap of 3 days in the records. Then a note from a different doctor, Dr. James Reardon, neurosurgeon. Mrs. Garrett has requested second surgical consultation regarding patient's temporal lobe. She reports patient is experiencing continued seizure activity at night, unwitnessed, and has noted behavioral changes including inappropriate emotional responses and confusion about family relationships. After examination, patient appears neurologically stable with no objective evidence of ongoing seizure activity. However, giving mother's concern and patient's young age, discussed the possibility of preventative temporal lobectomy to reduce future seizure risk. Preventative. Emma's hands were shaking so hard the papers rustled. Explained to Mrs. Garrett that temporal lobectomy carries risk of memory impairment, particularly for autobiographical memories from early childhood. Mrs. Garrett stated she understood and felt the risk was acceptable given her concern about patients' confusion and emotional dysregulation. Obtained informed consent, surgery scheduled. They'd cut into her brain to erase her father, not to save her life, not to stop seizures that were actually happening, to make her forget. Emma stood up and walked to the window, the paper still clutched in her hand. Outside, the treehouse was still there, weathered now, missing boards, a relic from a different lifetime. She'd climbed it again when she was 12, after the surgeries, after the recovery. She'd looked down from the platform and felt nothing. No fear, no recognition, just wood and nails and the vague knowledge that something bad had happened there once. She'd asked her mother later why they never torn it down. Because you loved it, her mother had said, before the accident. It seemed wrong to take it away. But that hadn't been mercy. It had been a monument, a reminder of the price her mother was willing to pay to rewrite history. Emma turned back to the papers. There was one more document at the bottom of the stack.
Not a hospital record, a letter handwritten on lined paper, the ink faded but still legible.
Dear Emma, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Your mother has made it very clear that I'm not welcome in your life, and maybe she's right. Maybe I don't deserve to be. But I need you to know I didn't leave because I didn't love you. Emma's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forced herself to keep reading. I left because your mother told me to. We were young, too young, probably. And when Claire's father died, your mother needed time to grieve, and I wasn't helping. I wasn't good at it, the comforting, the right words. I was working 2 jobs just to keep the rent paid, and when I was home, I was tired and useless. She asked me to give her space. 6 months, she said. Time to figure out what she wanted, what we wanted. I thought it was reasonable. I thought we'd figure it out. But when I came back, she told me you didn't remember me, that you'd stopped asking about me, that you'd started calling Claire's father Daddy, and that I needed to let you have that, let you have a real family. I should have fought harder. I know that now. I should have demanded to see you, insisted on my rights, gotten lawyers involved. But I was 25 years old and terrified of hurting you more than I apparently already had. Your mother said you were happy. She said I'd just confuse you, make things harder. So I left, and I've regretted it every single day since. I tried to stay in touch. I sent letters, birthday cards. Your mother returned them all. Eventually, I stopped trying. I told myself it was kinder that way, that you were better off without me. But I want you to know I wanted to be your dad. I wanted to watch you grow up. I wanted all of it. If you ever find this, if you ever want to know me, I'm not hard to find. My name is Michael Torres. I live in Portland. I never stopped hoping you'd look for me someday. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to fight for you. I love you. I always have. Dot. Emma sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the letter shaking in her hands. Michael Torres. She had a name, and her mother had made sure she would never use it. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in her childhood bed, the one her mother had kept made up in the guest room, frozen in time like a museum exhibit, and stared at the ceiling, fitting pieces together. The fragments started making sense. She'd always been told that Claire's father, the man who died when Emma was 5, had been her father too. It was easier that way, her mother said, less complicated. And Emma had believed it, even though the math never quite worked. Claire was 6 years older. The man had died when Claire was 12, which meant Emma was 6. But Emma's earliest clear memories, the ones that came after the surgery, didn't include him at all. She'd been told it was the memory loss, the way the accident had scrambled her chronology. But it wasn't scrambled, it was erased. She remembered the conversations that had happened over the years, the ones that had always felt slightly off. Her mother redirecting whenever Emma asked about Dad. Claire getting tense when Emma wanted to look at old photo albums. The way holidays felt incomplete in a way Emma could never articulate. There'd been a therapist, too, when Emma was 12, struggling with anxiety that no one could quite explain. The therapist had talked about attachment and loss and the way trauma could manifest in unexpected ways. She'd suggested family therapy. Emma's mother had smiled and said they were doing just fine, thank you, and that was the end of it. Emma spent her teenage years feeling like she was homesick for a place she'd never been. Now she knew why. She got up at dawn and drove to Claire's house without calling first. Mark answered the door in his broth robe, coffee mug in hand, surprise flickering across his face. Emma, it's 6:30. I need to talk to Claire. She's not awake. I don't care. Mark stepped aside and Emma walked past him into the perfect beige house, up the perfect beige stairs, to the bedroom where her sister was just sitting up, blonde hair sleep mussed, confusion shifting into wariness as she saw Emma's face. What's wrong? Emma held out the letter. Did you know? Claire looked at the paper but didn't take it. Did I know what? That Michael Torres is my father, that he didn't abandon me, that Mom drove him away and then made sure I couldn't remember him. Something flickered in Claire's expression. Guilt maybe, or just exhaustion.
Emma, did you know? Claire's jaw tightened. I knew Mom asked him to leave. I was 11. I remember him being around, and then I remember him not being around anymore. I remember Mom saying it was better this way. In the surgery, did you know she asked them to erase my memories? I didn't know the details. Claire swung her legs out of bed, reaching for her robe. I knew the doctors were worried about your emotional state. I knew Mom was afraid you'd never recover if you kept asking about him. So you knew she used my accident as an excuse to rewrite history. That's not fair. Claire stood up, tying the robe with sharp, angry movements. You don't know what it was like. Dad, my dad, had just died. Mom was barely functioning. And then you kept asking about Michael, kept crying for him, kept saying he promised to come back. It was breaking her heart, Emma, every single day, watching you wait for someone who wasn't coming back. But he wanted to come back, Emma cracked. He wrote me a letter. He tried to stay in touch. Mom sent everything back. Because it would have made things worse, Claire was shouting now. Because you were 5 years old and you didn't understand that he left because he couldn't handle being a parent. Because he was too young and too broke and too useless. That's not true. That's what Mom told you. That's what I saw, Claire's composure shattered. I saw him leave, Emma. I saw Mom crying. I saw her trying to hold everything together while you kept asking when Michael was coming home, like he was just at the store, like he hadn't made it perfectly clear he didn't want this life. He was 25 years old and Mom told him to give her space. She manipulated him. She protected us. Claire's voice dropped to something sharp and dangerous. She protected you, because that's what mothers do. They make hard choices so their children don't have to suffer. By cutting into my brain, by erasing who I was, by giving you a chance to be happy. Claire's hands were shaking now. You don't remember, Emma. You don't remember what you were like before the accident. You were obsessed with him. You had nightmares. You'd have crying fits because you thought he was lost and needed help. The therapist said you were developing attachment issues, that you needed stability, consistency. So Mom gave me brain surgery. She made a choice. Claire's voice was ice now. And maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe there were other options, but she made it out of love, and you've had a good life because of it. You've been happy. I've been living a lie. You've been living the life Mom built for you, the life she sacrificed everything to give you. Do you know what she gave up? She could have dated, she could have remarried, but every man she met, she'd compare them to what we needed, and no one measured up. She dedicated her entire life to making sure we had stability, security, a home. And you want to throw that away because you found some old papers and a letter from a man who abandoned you?
He didn't abandon me. She took me from him. She took you from instability, from broken promises, from a man who couldn't even hold down a job long enough to pay child support. You don't know that. I know he never fought for you. Claire's voice went quiet, and somehow that was worse than the shouting. Not in court, not through lawyers. He had rights, Emma. He could have sued for custody or visitation, but he didn't. He wrote you a letter and put the burden on a child who just had brain surgery to find him someday. What kind of father does that? Emma felt tears burning at the corners of her eyes. The kind who believed her mother when she said he'd hurt me by trying. Or the kind who was relieved to have an excuse to walk away. The words hung between them like broken glass. I can't do this, Emma said quietly. She turned toward the door. Where are you going? To find him. Emma, Claire grabbed her arm. Don't, please. Whatever you think you're going to find, whatever closure you think this will bring, it won't. It'll just open old wounds. Mom spent 20 years protecting you from this pain. Don't throw that away because you're angry. Emma pulls her arm free. I'm not angry. I'm devastated, and I have a right to be. She walked out of the bedroom, down the perfect beige stairs, past Mark, who was pretending not to have heard everything. She got in her car and drove with no destination, just movement, just the need to be anywhere but in that house with her sister's justifications ringing in her ears. She ended up in a coffee shop parking lot, her hands still shaking, her phone open to a search engine. Michael Torres, Portland. There were dozens of results,
Hundreds, maybe. But Emma added age 48 and started narrowing it down. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of social media profiles and LinkedIn pages and property records. 3 hours of cross-referencing addresses with the return address on the letter she'd found she'd ended up. Then she found him. Michael Torres, 48 years old, living in a small house in Northeast Portland, worked as a contractor, had a Facebook page that was mostly pictures of woodworking projects and a golden retriever named Scout. No wife, no other children. Just a man who'd spent the last 20 years building other people's homes. Emma sat in the parking lot with her phone in her hand and tried to decide if she was brave enough to call. In the end, she sent an email instead, to the address listed on his contracting website. Mr. Torres, my name is Emma Barrett. I'm 27 years old. I think you might be my father. I found a letter you wrote to me. I was 7 when you wrote it. I'm sorry it took me this long to find you. If you're willing, I'd like to talk. Emma. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she drove to her mother's house and started packing up the woman's life with a kind of numb efficiency, sorting through closets and drawers and the accumulated weight of decades. She found more photos, old ones from before the accident. A young man with dark hair holding a toddler with Emma's eyes. The two of them at a park, at the beach, at a kitchen table with birthday cake. Her mother had kept them, hidden, but kept. Emma didn't know what that meant. The email response came at 10:47 p.m. Emma, I've been waiting 20 years for this message. I'm willing. I'm more than willing. When? They met at a diner halfway between Seattle and Portland, neutral territory, a place where Emma could leave if she needed to, where neither of them had to carry the weight of old homes and older ghosts. She arrived 15 minutes early and ordered coffee she didn't drink, watching the door with a kind of suspended terror, unsure if she'd even recognize him. But when he walked in, she knew. He looked like the photos, just weathered. The same dark hair, now shot through with gray. The same build, still strong from physical work. The same eyes. Her eyes, she realized with a jolt, that scanned the diner with visible nervousness before landing on her. He froze. Emma stood up, her legs unsteady. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across the length of the diner. Then, Michael crossed the distance in 6 long strides and stopped just short of touching her, his hands hovering like he couldn't quite believe she was real. Hi, he said, and his voice cracked on the single syllable. Hi, Emma echoed. They sat down, ordered food neither of them ate, and then, haltingly, they started talking. Michael told her about the years after he left, the jobs he'd worked, trying to build something stable enough to petition for custody, the letters he'd sent that had all been returned, the private investigator he'd hired when Emma was 12, who'd reported back that Emma was happy, healthy, doing well in school, and that disrupting her life might do more harm than good. I told myself I was being selfless, Michael said, staring at his coffee, that I was putting your needs first. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared that if I pushed too hard, you'd hate me for it. Scared that your mother was right, that I'd just cause you pain. She told the doctors I was confused, that I was asking inappropriate questions about you. She used my accident to erase you. Michael's jaw tightened. I suspected something like that. When I came to see you in the hospital, this was after the first surgery before they'd let me know about the second one, your mother told me you didn't remember me, that the injury had wiped out those early years. She said if you really loved me, I'd let you heal without the confusion of a stranger showing up. You came to the hospital? 3 times. The third time, security escorted me out. Your mother had told them I was harassing the family. His hands were shaking now. I should have fought harder. I should have gotten a lawyer, demanded a DNA test, forced the issue. But I was terrified of hurting you more. And your mother, she was very convincing about what was best for you. I thought you didn't want me. Emma, Michael reached across the table, then stopped, his hand hovering. I've wanted you every single day. Every birthday, every Christmas, every ordinary Tuesday. I thought about you, wondered what you looked like, what you sounded like, if you were happy. His voice broke. If you ever thought about me. I did, Emma whispered. I just didn't know I was doing it. I always felt like something was missing, like I was homesick for a place I couldn't remember. They talked for 3 hours. Michael told her about her early years, the memories she'd lost, how she used to help him in his workshop, handing him tools she couldn't name, how she was obsessed with birds and could identify a dozen species by the time she was 3, how she called him Papa before Emma's mother had started insisting on Daddy to match Claire. Emma told her about the years after, the anxiety, the feeling of disconnection from her own life, the way she'd never felt quite at home in her mother's house, even though it was the only home she could remember. I'm angry, Emma admitted, at Mom, at the doctors, at you a little for not fighting harder. You have a right to be. All of that is fair. But I'm also just sad, because she's gone now, and I can't ever ask her why she thought this was okay, why she thought she had the right to choose my memories for me.
Michael nodded slowly. Your mother and we were young. We made mistakes. But I think she genuinely believed she was protecting you. She grew up in a home where her father left and it broke her mother. She didn't want that for you. So she gave me something worse. She gave me a lie. She gave you the family she wished she'd had, Michael said quietly. I'm not excusing it. What she did was wrong. But I think she was terrified of you turning out like her, broken by abandonment. So she tried to erase the possibility. Emma wiped her eyes. Claire thinks I'm being unfair, that I should be grateful for the life Mom built. Are you grateful? Emma thought about it. I'm grateful for some of it, the stability, the opportunities, but I'm not grateful for the lie. And I'm not grateful that I had to lose 20 years with you because she couldn't handle her own trauma. Michael's eyes were wet now, too. For what it's worth, I'm so incredibly proud of you, the woman you've become. I know I had no part in raising you, but Emma, you're remarkable. Something in Emma's chest cracked open. She reached across the table and took her father's hand. They sat there for a long time, connected across 20 years of silence. Emma didn't go back to Claire's house. She went back to her mother's house and called her sister from the driveway. I met him, Emma said when Claire answered. Silence on the other end. He's a good man, Claire. He spent 20 years regretting that he let Mom convince him to walk away, and I believe him. Emma, I'm not asking for your approval. I'm telling you that I'm going to have a relationship with my father, and I'm telling you that I'm not going to pretend anymore that what Mom did was okay. What do you want from me? Claire's voice was tired. An apology? I can't apologize for Mom's choices. I want you to acknowledge that they were wrong. I can't do that. Why not? Because if I do, Claire's voice croaked. If I do, then I have to face the fact that our entire childhood was built on a lie, that Mom wasn't the hero I thought she was, that she was just broken and flawed and human, and I can't. I'm not ready to see her that way. Emma closed her eyes. I understand that, I do. But Claire, you can't ask me to pretend for your sake. You can't ask me to keep living the lie because it's easier for you. I know, Claire whispered. I just don't know how to reconcile it. The mom who tucked me in and made me lunch and came to every school play, with the mom who did that to you. They're the same person, Emma said gently. People are complicated. They can love us and still hurt us. They can make terrible choices for what they believe are good reasons. I'm scared, Emma admitted. If I let myself see her clearly, I'm afraid I'll lose her all over again. You won't lose her. You'll just see her more honestly. And maybe that's harder, but it's also more real. They sat in silence for a long moment, connected across phone lines and old wounds. I'm sorry, Claire said finally, for yesterday, for making it about Mom's intentions instead of your pain. That wasn't fair. Thank you. Are you going to see him again, Michael? Yes. Okay. Claire took a shaky breath. Okay. Will you tell me about it?
Not now, but eventually? Eventually, Emma agreed. They hung up and Emma sat in her car outside her mother's house, watching the treehouse sway slightly in the evening breeze. She thought about 7-year-old her climbing those boards with complete confidence, fearless in the way only children can be. She thought about the fall that had changed everything, the accident that had become an opportunity, the surgery that had erased more than just swelling and scar tissue. Her mother had thought she was building a better story, a cleaner narrative, a family without the messy complications of absent fathers and broken promises. But stories aren't clean. Families aren't narratives you can edit. And memories, even the ones that hurt, are what make us whole. Emma got out of her car and walked around to the backyard. She climbed the treehouse ladder for the first time in 15 years, testing each board carefully until she reached the platform. From up here, she could see everything: her mother's house, the garden her mother had planted, the fence her mother had maintained, the evidence of a life lived with fierce, protective love. Flawed love, controlling love, but love nonetheless. Emma pulled out her phone and took a picture. Then she sent it to Michael with a simple message. "This is where it happened. I thought you should see it." He responded within minutes. "Thank you for sharing this with me. It must have taken courage to go back up there." "It did," Emma typed back. "But I think I needed to reclaim it maybe, to make it mine again instead of just the place where everything broke." "That makes sense. You're braver than I ever was." "I had to be," Emma wrote. "I didn't have a choice." Emma climbed back down and went inside the house. There was still so much to sort through, so many decisions about what to keep and what to let go. But for the first time since her mother died, Emma felt like she could breathe. The estate sale was Claire's idea, surprisingly. "We should let people have her things," Claire said when she called 2 weeks later. "The furniture, the dishes, the books. Someone should use them, love them." They spent a weekend pricing and labeling, working side by side in a way they hadn't since childhood. They didn't talk much, but the silence was different now, less tense, more thoughtful. Emma kept the jewelry box with the false bottom. Claire kept her mother's wedding ring. They split the photo albums and agreed to make copies of everything so they each had complete sets. On the last day of the sale, an older woman bought the dining room table, the one they'd had countless finding family dinners, where Emma did her homework, where Claire announced her engagement. "This is beautiful," the woman said, running her hand over the wood. "You can tell it's been loved." "It has. I hope it treats you well." After the woman left, Emma and Claire sat on the front porch, watching strangers carry pieces of their history away in the backs of trucks and SUVs. "Do you think she knew," Claire asked suddenly, "how much damage she was doing?" "I think she knew it was wrong," Emma said slowly, "but I think she convinced herself it was necessary, that the end justified the means." "Does it make you hate her?" "No. I'm angry, I'm hurt, but I don't hate her. She was doing the best she could with her own trauma and limitations. It just wasn't good enough." Claire nodded. "I've been thinking about getting therapy to work through all of this." "That's good. That's really good, Claire. Will you come to family sessions, I mean, if the therapist thinks it would help?" Emma looked at her sister, really looked at her, saw the cracks in her perfect composure, the fear underneath the control, the little girl who'd lost her father and then watched her mother try to rewrite history. "Yeah," Emma said. "I'll come." Michael visited 3 weeks later. Emma drove him past their old house, the one they lived in when she was small. It had been renovated, updated, transformed, but the bones were the same. "You had a garden," Michael said, pointing to the backyard. "We'd planted tomatoes together. You were so proud when they finally turned red." Emma tried to imagine it. Herself at 3 or 4, small hands covered in dirt, grinning up at this man who'd been erased from her history. She couldn't quite see it, but she could feel it, a phantom limb of memory. They drove to the beach next. Emma didn't remember coming here as a child, but Michael said they'd come every summer, building sandcastles and collecting shells. "You found a sand dollar once," he said, staring out at the water. You were convinced it was magic. You kept it on your dresser until... He stopped. Until the accident. Yeah. They walked along the shore, not talking, just being, father and daughter, reclaiming time. That night, Emma went back to her apartment, the first night she'd slept in her own bed in over a month, and opened her laptop. She'd been thinking about this for weeks, turning it over in her mind. She started typing. My mother died 6 weeks ago, and I've been sorting through her things. In the process, I discovered that she'd hidden the truth about my childhood from me for 20 years. She'd used a medical procedure to erase my memories of my biological father, convincing doctors that it was necessary for my recovery when, really, it was about controlling my narrative. I'm writing this because I think there are probably others out there who've experienced something similar. Maybe not as extreme, but the same basic violation, having someone else decide which memories you get to keep, which parts of your history are acceptable. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this information now. My mother is gone, so I can't confront her. My sister is struggling to reconcile the mother she knew with the mother who did this to me. And my father, the one who was erased, is trying to figure out how to be a dad to a 27-year-old daughter he hasn't seen in 2 decades. All I know is this: our memories are ours, our stories are ours, and no one, no matter how much they love us, no matter how much they think they're protecting us, has the right to edit them without our consent. I'm still angry, I'm still grieving, but I'm also rebuilding, one memory at a time, one conversation at a time, one reclaimed piece of my history at a time. And I'm learning that being whole doesn't mean being undamaged. It means being honest about the damage and choosing to live anyway. She posted it to her blog, the one she'd started years ago and mostly abandoned without overthinking it. Within a week, it had been shared 10,000 times. People wrote to her with their own stories of family secrets and erased histories, of the ways love and control could become indistinguishable. Emma read every message, responded to most of them, and slowly, painfully, started to understand that her mother's choice, while uniquely terrible, was part of a larger pattern of parents who couldn't separate their own wounds from their children's healing. Michael started coming up to Seattle once a month. They'd have dinner, walk around the city, get to know each other in increments. It was awkward sometimes, full of gaps neither of them knew how to bridge, but it was real. Claire came to one of those dinners eventually. She sat across from Michael at a restaurant Emma had chosen carefully, somewhere neutral and warm, and said the thing Emma knew had cost her everything to say. I'm sorry for not questioning Mom more, for accepting her version of events without pushing back. Emma deserved better. You deserved better. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That means more than you know. They didn't become a perfect family. There was too much history, too much hurt, but they became something real, messy and complicated and honest. Emma sold her mother's house 6 months after the funeral. The money was split evenly, just like Claire had planned. Emma used her half for a down payment on a small house with a yard, a place with room to plant a garden and maybe someday build a treehouse that wasn't haunted. On the day she moved in, Michael helped her unpack. They worked in comfortable silence, arranging furniture and hanging pictures. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? Michael asked as they were building a bookshelf. Emma thought about it. I think forgiveness is more complicated than yes or no. I think I can acknowledge that she loved me and still acknowledge that she hurt me. I think I can be grateful for some things and angry about others. I think I can hold all of it at once. That sounds exhausting. It is, Emma admitted, but it's honest, and I'd rather be exhausted and honest than comfortable and living a lie. Michael nodded. For what it's worth, you're handling this with more grace than I think I would have. I don't know about grace. Some days I'm just surviving. That counts too. They finished the bookshelf and stepped back to admire their work. It was slightly crooked, but solid. Good enough, Emma said. Better than good enough. It's real. That night, alone in her new house, Emma pulled out the letter her father had written 20 years ago. She'd read it dozens of times now, but it still made her throat tight. I love you. I always have. She folded it carefully and placed it in a frame, then hung it on the wall next to a photo Michael had given her, the two of them at the beach when she was 3, her small hand clasped in his, both of them laughing at something the camera had caught but time had erased. She couldn't remember that moment. Maybe she never would, but she could honor it. She could build new memories around the edges of the old ones, filling in the gaps with truth instead of silence. Outside, the Seattle rain started falling, steady and soft. Emma made tea and sat by the window, watching the water blur the streetlights into something beautiful and strange. She thought about her mother, about the woman who loved her enough to destroy part of her, who'd been so terrified of abandonment that she manufactured absence instead. She thought about Claire, learning to see their mother as human rather than hero, struggling with the weight of complicated love. She thought about Michael, who'd spent 20 years carrying the ghost of a daughter he couldn't reach. And she thought about herself, 7 years old, climbing a treehouse with complete confidence, unaware that in a few minutes she'd fall and break and be remade into someone else's image of who she should be. That girl was gone. The surgery had seen to that. But Emma was here, whole in her brokenness, honest in her hurt, and finally, after 20 years of living in someone else's carefully constructed story, she was beginning to write her own.